All right, now we're being recorded. Again, thank you so much just for being here with us this afternoon and for taking the time. We do know that you have so many things just vying for your time, but we do appreciate you being in this space with us this afternoon. For those of you who might not know who I am Kenesha Reynolds, and I serve as the Director of Conservation Programs here at NACD. And along with my team, we oversee the federal grants and agreements, including this outreach and technical assistance grant program that we will be discussing this afternoon. I started at NACD back in January, but I haven't had the opportunity or the privilege to meet a lot of you just yet, but I do look forward to meeting you in the near future. On this webinar today, we're also joined by our Chief Program Officer, Jen Nelligan, and Chessa Osifort, who is our Programs Manager, and they'll be supporting behind the scenes and also doing more in this webinar to support today. We're also very, very fortunate to have Casey Taylor with us today. Casey is an RCS Regional Conservationist for the Northeast region. And Casey will spend some time just to talk about this program, the purpose of the program, the partnership, and just give us some background on how this program got started. So thank you, Casey, for being on and for sharing this space with us. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. Please, if you can, just keep your microphones muted. This is just to help us to minimize the background noise so this information can come through clearly for everyone. As we're going through this presentation, feel free to drop your questions or comments in the chat, but we will provide a space at the end where you can unmute and ask questions or provide comments. And then lastly, we're recording this webinar and we'll be able to share this link with you all in the next couple of days. Chessa, next slide, please. Thank you. So briefly, what we're going to run through on this webinar today, again, as I mentioned, we'll just give some overview of the program, and Casey is so generous to do that for us today. Some of you are familiar with the program. You've served as reviewers in the past, but there are others who might be new and is not as familiar or not familiar. And so we wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to get everyone up to speed. So if this is not your first rodeo, we ask for your patience as we provide this information and background for everyone else who might need it. We'll also just go through the roles and responsibilities of the state leadership team or the evaluation team, touch on the evaluation matrix that we'll be providing for you to use as you're reviewing the proposals, walk through our proposed timelines for this process, share a little bit about the applications we've received for this round of funding. And then finally, I'll pass it off to Chessa to talk about our grants management system, which is GrantVantage. Next slide, Chessa, please. All right, so Casey, I'm going to pass it off to you to introduce yourself properly and then I'll talk about this program in more details.
Hey, thank you, Kenesha. Before I get started, I want to do a quick sound check, make sure that you guys can hear us loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Well, first and foremost, we bring you greetings from the illustrious National Conservation Planning Partnership. So the timing of this meeting is absolutely on par. We really want to be able to stress the importance of what we believe to be, again, the most successful conservation delivery mechanism that we have across the core partnership to be able to grow our producer stewardship and being able to go into that higher level of practice adoption. But as Kenesha has already shared, my name is Casey Taylor, and I have the distinct honor and privilege to be able to share some insight for you on behalf of the Office of Regional Conservationists, where I serve as the Northeast Regional Conservationist. So as we focus on growing our producer stewardship, the locally led conservation is and remains foundational for our conservation partnership. Through the historical partnership between NRCS and the conservation districts, we've invested in the most critical resource that the partnership has, which is our employees. Since 2018, We've been able to have an effective relationship in fostering the collaboration at all levels. So the grassroots levels that's focused more within the field to the state level between our state conservationists and state territory and association leaders, and more specifically nationally, where we've shown that the collaboration simply matters. Internally and to our valued landowners, where operators are really the focal point of how we serve and what's now being serviced. Locally led conservation is at the core of what we do and how we serve. Through the service delivery model, our partners can help achieve voluntary conservation practice adoption and implementation by helping to deliver services and supports outlined within the conservation plan for use through the federal, state, and county levels of service. This grant will focus in on the NRCS federal programs and services. But we also want to be able to stress the importance for inclusion of all programs and financial assistance to meet those producers' objectives and goals. For today's purposes, folks, what we really wanted to be able to show is as many off-ramps as possible to be able to connect back what is those prioritization outlined within the conservation plan, to be able to connect to the financial assistance opportunities available at all levels of funding within the state. In fiscal year 23, NRCS stressed the importance of our new customer engagement. All states developed out the implementation roadmaps that outline the outreach opportunities to engage new audiences. As we focus on our efforts for increased funding opportunities, our mutual goal is to implement the outreach strategies to ensure that all of our farmers, ranchers, forest landowners, our tribes, underrepresented communities and groups, as well as now our urban growers, are fully serviced. More specifically, with the path forward for participation within those federal financial assistance programs. The state and local programs are also equally important, and they're providing those alternatives to getting conservation on the ground and being the key part of the locally led conservation delivery mechanism in our systems. We cannot stress enough the importance of communication across the partnership. The districts aid with the understanding and the why and how we can pivot to get those landowners and more specifically our operators within the door. We rely on the work that has been done to be able to help build and establish the trust that we have within that community group. We always like to say that we move at the speed of trust. So where that trust is strong, this is where we're seeing tremendous success. Where the trust is being established, this is where we really want to be able to, again, revisit what that service delivery model and mechanism should be and could be to be able to take us from good to great and beyond. NRCS is with you, and more specifically for NRCS, we need you to be side by side by our valued partners to be able to help and build and grow out these relationships. The time, the dedication, and more specifically, the partnership that will aid within a successful communication strategy. We recognize that we're always looking to simplify the process and more specifically being able to streamline our services, which is why we're scoping the work as a continued process improvement. This is now where we'll be able to take that and be able to formulate out a national process. While this is not intended to be a substantial and significant change from what we have previously done, we do want to make sure that there's a substantial support that's been provided for the attrition or turnover that we're all seeing collectively across the partnership. And we've noted that more specifically at the field, the area, and our state levels. This is where we really wanted to make sure that we're able to address some of the inconsistencies that we've seen and we've been able to talk through today through the National Conservation Planning Partnership and back within our respective organizations and groups. By streamlining and standardizing the evaluation process, we can also ensure that there is a greater transparency and accountability within the program. So I'm going to pause there, folks. And again, we want to make sure that the conversations are consecutively growing and going with us, being able to really come back into those state strategies and strategic plans that really have accounted for the voice of our customer. Again, as I've shared earlier, the most critical customer we have is our employees. We recognize by investing in you, providing you with the tools and resources and access to information, that is where we're able to reach those higher stewarding goals that have been specifically outlined within those implementation strategies, roadmaps, and plans that now we're looking at being able to adopt and implement going into fiscal year 25 in those outlying years. I want to pause there, and Kanisha, I'll kick it back to you.
Thanks, Casey. Really appreciate all the information you just provided and emphasizing just the importance of this program, again, for our districts and grantees, but also how important it is for our landowners, our operators, and our communities that are being served through this program. Chessa, if you could switch to the next slide, please. Thank you. I'm going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the state leadership team or evaluation team from a process standpoint. And then Casey, I'll ask you to chime in again and just talk about, like the goals for these grants or these agreements and partnerships. So as evaluators, no pressure, but as Casey just mentioned, how important this program is. And so we want to make sure that we're selecting projects that are meeting the requirements of these programs, but projects that are really impactful. So as the state leadership team evaluating these proposals, you're really key here in helping us to select and award these projects again to meet that are meeting the goals, the objectives, and the purpose of this program. You are the ones with the knowledge of the local priority areas, the capacity needs, the capacity gaps, the landowners and the operators and the community needs. And so we're really relying on you to help us to review and select the most impactful projects that are going to address these concerns and these needs that are identified at that local level. So reviewing the proposals really mean deep diving into the proposals. We really want you to thoroughly read through each project that you will be evaluating for your state or your territory. And again, help us to determine which one of those projects really warrants funding. As you're reading through or reviewing each proposals, we will ask you to score each proposals based on the RFP criteria that we outlined. So each applicant are aware of what is expected from them in their projects from a technical standpoint or from the local priorities or client needs for each of these proposals that they're submitting. And we will provide you with a scoring matrix, rubric, whatever you would like to call it. And we'll touch on that in just a moment to help you as you're reading through each proposals and considering each criteria and each section of the projects that you're taking some time to gather your thoughts, see maybe some issues or concern that you would want the applicants to address as you're reading through. One of the key challenges that we hear in the process is that there is inconsistency in how proposals are reviewed and selected across state and territory. And to Casey's point, there has been some changes over time in positions. And so not everyone might be familiar with this process. You might be new to this process. So we just want to reiterate the importance of just consistency, transparency, and accountability in the process, which also is one of the reasons we are providing you with this rubric. So there is some standard across national standards. So even though you're evaluating at a state level, that there will be some standards or consistency across states and territories as you're reviewing and ranking these proposals. So in order for us to do that, again, we are just reminding evaluators to be communicating and collaborating with the applicants as you're wanting them to make changes to different sections of the proposals. I think in the past it has gotten to where NACD is doing more of that communication to applicants. So we're hearing from you, the reviewers, and we're taking what you're telling us and we're going to the applicants. So we're kind of serving as that middleman. But for accountability, for collaboration, for relationship building, we we are requiring the state leadership team, again, just getting back to the process, to be working directly with the grantees on any of the necessary changes and to scope, whether that's a technical approaches or the needs or the budget, to get the proposals to the required standards of the program. So again, as you're reviewing these proposals, making sure that you're capturing these concerns, and communicating them out to the applicants. So having this back and forth dialogue with the applicants until you get a proposal that you're comfortable with and one that warrants funding under this program. So again, keep in mind, as you're reviewing the proposals, you don't have to award proposals as is. And that's the part that we're asking you to take some time to really dig into the proposals and making sure that they are impactful and they're meeting the standards of the program. So if you have identified these concerns as you're reviewing proposals, we ask that you clearly communicate them to the applicants and make sure that they understand your expectations for revision. Again, we don't want to just fund a project to fund a project. We are looking for projects that are going to meet the local needs, meet the client needs, and that are going to be most impactful. And then once you're working with the applicants back and forth and you've gotten a proposal that you are comfortable with, a final version, then you will provide that to us at NACD along with your scores for each proposal or each applicant and the rankings across proposals, as well as approval or concurrence for the applicants that you would want us to move forward and fund. In the past, we required a letter of approval for each applicant. This time, we're not requiring those letters, but when we share the rubric with you, you'll see that there is a tab, a work tab on that workbook that you will just certify approval for any applicants that you would want to move forward with funding. So that's it for me on this slide from a process standpoint, Casey. I'm going to pass it off to you to talk more on just maybe goals and expectations around agreement.
No, thank you for that, Kenesha. Again, state conservationists, we're asking you to start with the end result in mind. So look to ensure that there are clear and distinct goals for each of your grants and agreements with the partners. It's permissible to have multiple agreements with a single partner, but we really are relying on you to make the appropriate funding determinations to ensure that we're putting the dollars where we have the most critical need. So as Kenesha mentioned, scoring should be used to inform those respective ratings. At the end of the day, the evaluators will need to take a step back to make sure that we're allocating funds to the areas that have the service and capacity needs. Again, we really want to make sure that we're moving where we have those opportunities to be able to close some of those remediated gaps, and more specifically, the gaps within our service. There could be a fantastic proposal that ranks high based on what we're seeing on the technical approach and more specifically the metrics. But if the state conservationists are already funding this through another agreement, so where you've already been working hand in hand with your respective partners, you already have that agreement moving forward, either it's just initiated or you're in year 2 or beyond. We do not want to be able to duplicate that. Or perhaps it's in an area that already has sufficient capacity as well as resources, then it may not rank highly enough to be funded. So we really want to make sure that these conversations aren't starting within the TA proposal. If this is the first time you're able to engage your partners, maybe you're new coming into that respective state and role, partners are new within their respective states and roles, this is where now we can start building out to what is the long-term strategy. We want to move away from being reactive and really going into more of a strategic approach that crosswalks into your implementation strategies that shows where we have, again, the largest capacity needs that have been identified within your workload analysis, your staffing plans, training, and being able to, again, better service those value producers across the landscape. So just in mind, let's keep that first point there as our goal. Again, starting with the end result in mind and being able to make sure that, again, we can really be good stewards to those funds that have been allocated within your respective states. So I'll pause there, folks. And again, I want to pause just for 1 second and say thank you, thank you, thank you. The work that this partnership has done is substantial. As we're moving in our focus now to fiscal year 25, we really want to be able to say what a tremendous job that was done in 24. In 24, it was a substantial effort that moved across the landscape, and we would not have been able to do that without the benefit of our partnership. The chief was here with us in Duluth, Minnesota, and the one thing that he stressed across the partners was that every year that we've been looking at being able to deliver a higher level of engagement and support, it was never with the intent that NRCS would do this alone. The lift was so substantial that we've always been able to engage our partners because, again, we have the trust, we have the expertise, and we have the insight across that core partnership. So between the districts, NRCS, our employee association within NACD, also looking at our National Association of RC&D councils and our state agencies. Together, collectively, we have been able to respond back to what your producers' needs are in your states and being able to remediate those goals. These TA grants allow for us to be able to quickly surmise where those opportunities are, bringing that additional capacity support on board. So again, we can keep within that frame out for where we have the trust and where we're being able to grow out our collaborations and insights, whether if it's with a new beginning customer, an underrepresented group, or again, our valued conservation stewards who have been soil health champions and beyond a part of this effort. So again, we thank you guys for digging into this. We just want to make sure that as you're looking at this, we can bring it within the proper scope and lens, whether if it's an emerging conversation or if it's something that you guys have been consistently doing for the past however many years. We just want to build on that so you have the full autonomy within your virtual toolkit to be able to connect this back into some great boots on the ground engagement opportunities within your respective states. Kanisha, I'll pause there and I'll kick it back to you.
Thanks, Casey. Chessa, if you don't mind moving to the next slide for me, please. Thank you. Again, as I mentioned, that we will be providing you with a scoring rubric or matrix or score sheet, whichever term you prefer, just to help you as you're going through each proposals to think on a consistent basis as you're reviewing different sections of this proposals. So the matrix is really to help you to organize your thoughts, and if you've reviewed a number of proposals before, eventually they start running into each other. So this will just help you to keep organized, but also just to be consistent of how you're viewing each proposals. On the matrix that we'll share with you at some point after this webinar, or we'll figure out if we're going to add it in the chat. Can we add that in the chat, or maybe we'll follow up with an email? But in either way, we'll get that to you after this webinar. But again, you'll see as you open this matrix, there is sections for you to see the criteria, score each criteria for each proposal, and be able to then, based on those scores, inform the ranking of each proposals. But as Casey stressed, and I want to stress again, please, as you're reviewing, keep that local priority and resource concerns and capacity needs or landowners and clientele needs in mind when you're reviewing those proposals. Again, as I mentioned before, the scoring matrix really is aligned with the RFP. So whatever we're asking you to score the applications on, this is in the RFP, and applicants are aware of the asks or aware of those criteria in the RFP. Again, I mentioned before, but I just want to say it again here. Even if you're reviewing individually each proposals, completing that matrix individually, scoring each of those applications what we need from the state leadership team is one worksheet that has the scores for each application in that state or territory, the rankings of all those proposals that the group will collectively decide on the rankings, as well as the concurrence. And so you'll see that in the score sheet once you open that. But we only need one score sheet submitted to us. Each of you will be a reviewer in the system, so you'll be able to log into GrantVantage. Some of you have received an email already asking you to verify your email, so you can be going through GrantVantage to download any documents that you'll need, but also to score in GrantVantage if that's your preference. But we will provide you with a copy of the worksheet, and we'll need one representative to just submit a final group decision to us, one scoring matrix that has the group's decision on there. If that's not clear, do reach out to us, and we'll be able to provide some responses there. Next, please, Chessa. All right. So for this round of funding, we had about 170 applications representing 45 states and 2 territories with nearly $19 million in ask. Many of you know, or if you don't, I'll tell you now, we have $18 million. So we have more ask than funding for awards. And so as you're evaluating these proposals, again, really critical that you're digging into the proposals because we don't have enough money to fund all the requests or to fund them at the amount that's being requested. So we're asking you to really do your due diligence on these and help us to determine, or as a state team to determine whether you'll be able to fund all proposals at maybe a percentage of their request to accommodate every application, if depending on funding for that state or territory, or if you are going to fund full request or full ask, which not all proposals might be funded if you use that model. So something to keep in mind as you're reviewing. Again, just to reiterate, you don't have to award as is. You can negotiate different scope with the applicants as you're going through. But just keep that in mind. Chessa, next. This is just a visual of where the applications that we receive are from. As you can see, the darker shade, that's where we receive most applications, and then the lighter shade, fewer applications. The most we receive from any state or territory is 15. And we will be sharing a link with proposals for each of your states. So you'll not see all 170 proposals. We'll only share with the reviewers in a particular state or territory those applications for that state or territory. So we'll be sharing that link with you as well with the matrix after this webinar. Chessa, next slide, please. All right, so this looks like a really ambitious timeline as you start to look through the dates, but we are really aware of the challenges that our districts and grantees face when there is a gap in funding. This really impacts staffing. And so our goal is to avoid any lapse in funding. And so for this first initial review, we ask the state leadership team or the evaluators to complete reviews and inform the applicants of any changes that you are requesting of them in the proposal by November 15th. So that's about a month to do the initial review and just reaching out to applicants with suggested changes. Once the applicants are informed, we'll give them a week or so just to make those updates as suggested, as recommended, and re-upload the updated versions in the GrantVantage system, which each reviewer will then be able to see that updated proposals. So by November 22nd, they'll have to turn that around and send it back to the review team. And then the team will be working with the applicants to get the proposals to, one that really meets the requirements. So if you feel that the concerns weren't properly addressed, you can be back and forth in dialogue with the applicants until you get a version that is complete. That's the version that you'll send to us at NACD by December 1st, along with your rankings for the proposals and the concurrence. And then we'll work behind the scenes to figure out the funding per state and send those back to evaluators within a week or so. But the goal is to get final approval from the Office of Regional Conservationists by December 20th. We're really pushing to get this before the holidays. And so we ask all of you to really help us to meet this goal. And we want to it is our goal to announce the selections and start that MOA process by the end of December so we can speed up getting those MOAs signed as soon as we get into the new year. I know you might have some questions and comments on that, but before we get into that, I'll pass it off to you, Chessa, to just briefly walk through GrantVantage. We do have a manual that we will share with the team of a step-by-step walkthrough of the system. So that's going to be hopefully helpful as you're reviewing the proposals in the system.
One second here, my computer's not cooperating. Okay. When you sign into the GrantVantage system, this is the homepage you'll land on. If you've been assigned applications to review, they'll be listed under this assigned application. To get started, you'll click the little status review button. I'll find my mouse back. Sorry, trying to use two screens. And this will bring you to the begin review option. Some questions do not have required scoring, but as you flip through these, you can make the screen bigger too, and it will bring you to questions that have scoring, and you can type them in the top corner. If you have any comments you'd like to provide, you can include those in the reviewer comment box below. It won't let you submit your review until you're 100% complete. You'll have to hit save and submit review. One thing that's nice about the system is that you can cancel out of this, or you can hit save and cancel out, and it'll let you return back to the system wherever you left off. And then when you go back to the main screen, it will show you which applications you worked on but haven't submitted, and they should disappear once you submit the review. If you haven't received an invitation to join GrantVantage yet, please let me know and I can set up your profile for you if this is the option you want to do. You also have the option to download the reports. You can download their budget report or their application review if you want a paper copy or print it out that way. It's a very quick overview. It's a very intuitive system. If you run into issues, please let me know. I'll pass it back to you, Kanisha.
Thanks, Chessa. Again, we'll share a manual with you that has the step-by-step of the review process in GrantVantage. As you're going through it, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Chessa or myself, and we'll get you some answers, or if we need to get on a call with you, we're happy to do so as well to kind of walk through in more details. I know we're short on time today, so that was just to for you to see what the system looks like. Um, Chesa, if you get to that slide with the contact information,
Thank
thank
you.
you. So as Chesa mentioned, and I've mentioned at the top of this webinar, some of you have already received an email. If it might have hit your spam folder just because it is coming from directly from the GrantVantage system. So even though it's coming from an NACD net.org email, it's generated directly from the system. So it is possible that it went directly to your spam folder. But if you've received this notification, if you can go ahead and just verify your email, that will get you into the system so you can see the applications and all the other materials that you need for each applicant, but also to walk through each criteria for scoring and review. But we will be sharing this worksheet with you, the scoring matrix with you. So if you are kind of like me, where I like, things printed and not necessarily working in a portal, you'll have that option. If you have not received an email from us to get you into the system as a reviewer, if you scan this QR code, it will take you to this form stack form, which just asks you for your contact information, and we'll be able to add you as you complete this form. We'll also drop the link to the form in the chat for those who might not be able to scan the QR code. With that, we'll take questions. I know Jen has been fielding some questions in the chat, but we'll take questions or comments and then we'll just close with some final thoughts. Keisha, I see your hand.
Yes. So just want to make sure I'm clear. We're talking about the technical, this is the same as what we've been doing as far as the technical assistance. Because when you said
Yes.
projects, I thought you meant like conservation projects. We're talking about technical assistance support.
Yes, this is the TA grants that we've had since about
Okay.
2015 or so, Keisha. Yeah.
Okay. So then my second question is, why did we change the process? Was there some type of evaluation of the process we had before? I thought it worked perfectly well. This looks like it's creating more work for me and my team. So I would like to know the honest behind. Maybe because that's how we worked it in Arizona, that we kind of worked with our state association and it was seamless. So was
Yeah.
there a reason that the process changed?
There are a couple of things, Keisha. I think that there's been a lot of, turnover both at NRCS and at districts where you've been around for a while managing this, but that's not the case across. So we've started to see some inconsistencies, particularly when it came to that concurrence form. So based on last year's process, it seemed like just looking across the country, right? It was a lot more streamlined for folks to get that concurrence after they've gone through and folks are like, listen, we just need you to change this one thing, right? Because it makes sure that we have that accountability at the end. So if that makes sense, right? Because we don't want to end up in a situation where the evaluators in the states have asked for changes and then it goes past them and it never gets incorporated, right? So that's why it's pretty much the same process, except the letter of concurrence comes at the end so that we can be entirely sure that the proposal that you have reflects everything that you've talked about. Through the RFP process, we still encourage conservation districts and applicants to work with the state leadership teams, to work with their state conservationists, the state association directors and such, so that they're still having those conversations. It's just that formal little signature, right? That comes at the end instead of at the beginning now.
But we NRCS has to do a rating and ranking of all of these, correct?
Well, you've always had to do a ranking. That part's not new. Right? We've always gotten a ranking from the states to say, here are the top proposals, because that's where the funding cutoffs come from. With the scoring piece, that is meant to inform your conversations on the rankings. with each of the RFPs, we've always had, here are the criteria, right? You have to talk to outreach. You have to talk to your approach for technical assistance. What kinds of positions are you staffing? So this just provides a little bit more structure to that, because I think even that kind of was inconsistent across the states, or, it was, from our perspective and from what we had heard, it was kind of implemented inconsistently. So this just provides a little bit more structure to that. But at the end of the day, it's still that ranking piece, if that makes sense. And I'll pause to see if anyone else, whether Casey, Tessa, Kanisha, if you guys want to kind of pop in to address any of that as well. Rebecca, I think you're on somewhere. We've had a lot of conversations around this as well.
Hey.
Jen, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, go ahead, Casey, you first.
No. I was going to say, Jen, I thought you did a really nice job of framing that out. We just wanted to make sure, Keisha, that we were able to get a full understanding of what your respective needs are. All the state conservationists being ensured that it's not a duplicative effort. So if there are things that have already been carved out for you and your partners within Arizona, opposite of what now is being requested, this is where we can say, okay, this is already being supported versus what now is being proposed that's coming in either in addition or not from the partners. So we just wanted to make sure, again, we keep the voice of the customers specifically scoped to identify some of those needs and concerns. We also recognize, just like Jen had shared, where we've got strong models of success, we also have those opportunities to be able to delve into some of those next steps. And it's not an opportunity from a nefarious intent, it's more because you've got a change of the guard across the partnership. So as those new leaders are coming in to be able to get a better understanding of what's currently in play versus what now is being proposed and requested, we're able to connect that back and being able to move forward with some of those better ways to be able to service those producers and then our partnership again.
Okay, I'm sure me and my status, we'll figure it out.
And we can huddle more, Keisha, because I asked her.
I'm good.
Well.
I'm good. Me and
Okay.
Deb will work it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Rebecca, I did want to kick it back to you, ma'am. You were going to chime in.
No, ma'am, you said very eloquently exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, good deal.
We have a question in the chat. How soon we'll be able to start the review for our state's proposal? Every state might be using a different approach, as in some might individually review the proposal. Some members of the team might individually review and score the proposals first and then come together to discuss and align on rankings. Others, I don't know, maybe just get together in a room and hash it all out together. But we will, Kevin, once you get in the system, you'll be able to see the applications and you can start your review, but we'll also share a link with each proposals for states and territory that you can start reviewing those proposals or reading those proposals. But I will defer to your state leadership team to maybe talk about when the group gets together to review or to discuss or to align.
And
Jen.
maybe you can also just clarify when we'll send the link to the folders for the proposals outside of GrantVantage. And then also we'll include the evaluation matrix and the ranking sheet with that. Maybe you can clarify when that will be sent.
Yes, we will get these out to you by the end of the day tomorrow. So by the close of business tomorrow, we'll be able to get you your folders that will include the proposals for your state or territory, the ranking sheet, the instructions for GrantVantage, the step-by-step instructions for GrantVantage. So be on the lookout for an email from myself tomorrow by the close of business.
It looks a little bit different this year, Brian. There won't need to be a specific like Word document signed for every single proposal. Instead, it'll be consolidated into the ranking where you'll be able to kind of type in your concurrence. And that way you have everything in one sheet. It won't be as, you know what I mean? Like you won't have to go through like 15 or 20 documents or so. Alex,
Allison?
I'll mute Kanisha.
No, please stay on.
For some reason my chat's not working, so I'm gonna just do this verbally. But I logged onto my account and it looks like I have about like 9 applications to review. Will this be a rolling where like we finish these 9 and then we'll get more? Or is it like I just have these 9 to finish?
It's just going to be what's in the system. Maybe 1 or 2 that we had to accommodate folks in districts in areas that were affected by the hurricane that submitted those to us through emails, but that's not a lot. So don't expect more than or too much more than what you see in the system,
Okay.
Allison. And I apologize, I'm not quite sure what state
I'm in
you
Washington,
are.
so
Oh,
so
then
we are definitely
okay.
not impacted by the hurricane,
Yep. So you're
fortunately.
good.
So okay, great. So
Yeah.
that's streamlined. Thank you so much.
Yes. Are there any other questions or
One more
comments? Go
question.
ahead,
Sorry.
Allison. Sure.
When are these due by again? What's the due date?
So November 15th is
Okay.
the deadline for the first initial review and communication with the grantees on any changes that you're suggesting from them.
Copy that. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, Chessa, do you mind just sharing the screen one more time with, oh, Jen, I believe you did add the link to the contact for the contact information in the chat. So please grab that if you did not. But Chessa, if you could also just share that QR code one more time. If you have not received an email from the system asking you to verify, chances are you're not in the system as yet. So we just ask just to complete that form so we can have your contact information and get you in the system ASAP. Keisha, I see your hand.
Yes, I'm not sure if you're talking to everybody or to the conservation district people or are NRCS staff supposed to have an account?
Yes.
I'm not clear on who's doing what button thing in a computer. That's all.
Sure. Every member of the team, the state leadership team, will get an email from GrantVantage to verify your email so you can go in and see the proposals that are assigned to you and see the what Chessa just shared on the screen where you can see the criteria and scores. If you haven't received that yet, Keisha, Chessa will get you squared away.
So that's my question. So you all sent it to every state conservationist. I'm just trying to figure out if somebody on my team has it. Do I have it?
No,
who has it? That's all I'm asking.
It should have come directly from you, but I will work with Chessa just to make sure that that you're set up in the system. We're still trying to get everyone set up. Chessa, I saw you unmuted.
Activation code.
And if I want to assign it to someone else, that ability is there.
I can help you with that.
Okay. Because I doubt state conservationists are going to be the ones entering this data. I just don't see that happening.
We'll help you to get someone else in the system that you
want so we would just each contact you with who our contact person is.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and Keisha, to your point, we just wanted to make sure that as the allowance holders, the state conservationists receive that, and then as you want to designate and delegate, you absolutely have full authority to do so. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I found it. Actually, I found it. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect.
And we do have some limitations to the system, so work with us, bear with us. We'll get everybody in the system or get whoever your representative is in the system. Can you share the timeline? Let me see. I missed the email. Oh yeah. Thanks, Jen. We'll send out the slides with the timeline when we're sending out the email at the end of the day tomorrow as well. Once awards are issued, would it be possible to have the future quarterly performance accomplishments? Yes, we will be sharing reports from each grantee in your state or territory with everyone on the state leadership team. So that's yes, Eric. Oh, Jen, you just answered that one. Will your timing for RFP and approvals be the same for 25? We're planning ahead. We hope it will be similar, if not a little earlier. Is there a list of leadership team members by state? Who besides the state conservationists are participating on the review? So it would be the state association executive directors or representatives from state agencies or employee from NCDEA employee association.
We are asking for folks to fill out the contact form as well so that we know exactly who's on the state leadership team. So or state evaluation teams rather. So it's hard for us at headquarters not for NRCS at headquarters, for us at NACD to know exactly what that list is because it does change year by year. So we do ask that you share the link with your colleagues if they are going to be evaluating things, just so we have their contact information. We can get them GrantVantage access, and then we can share that broader list as well.
Keisha, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got a lot of questions, but I do. And this is for NRC. This is for NRCS leadership, and I know that they know that this is coming. So what you're just saying is we now have a new term called the leadership team, state leadership team, which is another term that NRCS uses for something else. So I'm going to ask for a policy. No one's surprised by me asking this. That's the works for NRCS. That because every state is different, right? So I guess because I know the National Conservation Partnership folks, everybody may not know who that is, right? So we need something, Casey. For right now, it could be a temporarily like a bulletin or something. But just like the earlier conversation from Jennifer about, I've just been around for a while, so I'm used to this. But we got a lot of new folks that may not know, because I'm seeing there are even questions in the chat about who is this leadership team. So we need something that defines that somewhere written so that all 51 units of ours are on the same page. Even if we don't have the exact makeup, because in Arizona we don't have the 5, that is part of the national partnership, but we may need to have that. And I think we have that, the partnership somewhere, but I don't think we have it in a directive. So that would be helpful. I'm just asking for that as a helpful tool so that everyone can kind of be on the same page. And then I'll codify it in my own state policy if I can get something from the national office on that. And then I think that was it. Was there a link is there a troubleshooter person with the technology? Did I see that in the chat somewhere? Because I'm needing a troubleshooting person.
I'm smiling because I'm sitting next to her, Keisha.
Okay.
And that's going to be Chessa as our main point of contact. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Let me not pull Chessa in.
So Casey, I put an email in the chat. It's the conservation programs at nacdnet.org. Chessa does monitor that, as does Chloe, as does some of our other teams. So it does take the pressure off of our friend Chessa.
Right. Well, and Keisha, thank you for that, Jen. And I know Chess is probably like poking me with a long sword. Keisha, just to kind of circle back to your point, you're spot on. So folks, we will make sure that we can send that listing out just as a reminder and a refresher to Keisha's point. So just very quickly for everyone's information, those 5 national members are the National Association of Conservation Districts, the National Association of Conservation Districts Employees Association, the National Association of RC&D Councils, our National Association of State Conservation Agencies, and NRCS itself, the National Resources Conservation Service. All states will not have that same makeup, but we are now coming back in and working through your respective leadership and members that are now comprised within your local working group process, locally led process, attending your state technical advisory committees from the NRCS will help, and being able to make sure that we have we're falling into an alignment with the locally led process. So Keisha, we'll get that going, and then we'll clarify that out and say, again, from an NRCS vernacular, we look at state leadership teams as being under the leadership of the state conservationist. This would be more of your state evaluation team that now will comprise those representatives that make up the core partners within those respective states. Yes, ma'am, we can get that done.
Thanks, Casey. Well, I know we're right on time, so I don't want to keep us beyond time, but Casey, any final words before we close out?
You know, I had something kind of prepared, but what I'll simply say, guys, is a thank you, thank you, thank you. We recognize that this is a critical conversation because it ties back to our capacity and more specifically the service delivery models. So where we have these opportunities to really go back in and revisit and commit back to the locally led process, the local working groups, what is the task and the ask to be able to provide that succinct process and service to our customers and the public. We really want to make sure that, again, we're starting with the end result in mind. Leaders lead, and that's not coming back just to the charge of our state conservationists. It's across the partnership to be able to have a well-scoped proposal that works in tandem within what now has been your respective leadership strategies, and more specifically your strategic plans, that shows how we're going to be able to timely service and support our producers across the landscape. So we're excited for the process, but we're really more excited for getting those bodies on board and being able to help us deliver these tremendous opportunities that are now available in fiscal year 25. So I'm going to pause there, Kanisha. Thank you, Jen, Chessa, everyone for your participation. And we're super excited from the NRCS side of the house for this opportunity to take us from good to great and beyond. Kanisha, I'll kick it back to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Casey. Well, I have nothing more to say than thank you all so much for being on here today. If you need some support, need assistance as you're, going into the GrantVantage system or opening folders, or just have any questions, please do reach out to us. Jen dropped the email in the chat, conservationprograms@nacdnet.org, and we'll get you some support. Thanks all. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.